Good morning. They've stolen, they introduced me, they introduced the whole concept of this, so that's like my first half of this page. I apologize for that. Vicky didn't need notes, but I'm not that smart. But I want, these three men have made history. We talked about history earlier and how Jamie has made history, but these three men have made history in a different way. It's with our biggest industry, our biggest economic driver, and for the first time, the leaders of the major tourism organizations are all native Hawaiian. Aaron Salah, he is the president and CEO of the Hawaii Visitors and Convention Bureau. Kuhio Lewis, who you've heard from many times this morning, of course, he runs CNHA, but they got a contract, a huge contract last year, $27 million that runs over many years, and that's for destination stewardship. That means when the visitors arrive, among the roles of CNHA and their tourism agency, which is Kilohana, is to educate the tourists. It's to teach them about Hawaiian culture and to teach them about respect for Hawaii. And Daniel, now OPE, Daniel is the Hawaiian Tourism Authority's interim president and CEO. Please welcome all three of them. So my first question is about what motivates and drives you, all three of you, to go into tourism, but I wanted to address this one to Aaron first, because you know, my wife was very impressed when I told her that I was going to be on stage with Aaron because, oh yeah, he's worked on so many things. He had such a beautiful voice. And you have a PhD in ethnomusicology. You have been an educator. You were the organizer of FestPac. And yet you have...
O ia e talani nui meha meha e he aku ana e taiwa e tilo mo e tula e tomo. Ole I vehena a ole I vai hona o tauna po o taho a te e ulei o ta ua haao e lelea e ana mauko au lele. E komo aku I tahale o te aloha laini au I te o vai tapu o pōnahi te one. Ainu I ta'awa atane I tanua I Hawaii I ola hia e tini atua ia o e ola ka inoa o ka mehemeha. No leila, kunou ha'a an hoi ke ia Kānaka mamua o kou me ka mahalo ia kuhio ma ke Council of Native Hawaiian Advancement hoi I kalako kono ana mai ia maua or Daniel Ney. I think Daniel might be okay if I speak on his behalf, just for this. I certainly could never claim Keawe as my home, but my DNA is certainly buried in this aina. My great-grandmother was Mary Kamalu Ka'awaloa from Puna. Great-grandpa was Joseph Iona Victor from Kona. Boom Kanani, born ia ko'u grandma. Oia ho'i o Cecilia Ka'ihilani Ka'awaloa Victor. Boom Ho Kanani, born ia kona sister, Dorothy Leilani Ka'awaloa Victor. Grandma married a pure Portuguese man from Kaimuki, and Auntie Didi married, so Hawaii. She married one Eldred's brother and had her first tribe with him, and then married the other Eldred's brother and had the rest of the tribe with him. And we grew up in Kailua on Oahu because great-grandma moved from Puna over to Hakima Road on the west side of Oahu. And then her second husband was from Virginia, moved to Kailua, Oahu. But Auntie Didi and Uncle Matthew came back to Puna. At the time when you turned off of South Kulani Highway, it took another hour and 20 or so minutes to get into the acres where great-grandma's land was. And so my DNA is enraptured by this aina. And so e ko Keawe, mahalo nui a oko pakahi ke ho o kipa ana mai Ikia ahanei mahalo. I forget the question, but I think when we are in the briefing for this, Kuhio really set this up because he said, it's sort of like what Antipua says and what John says and Kuleana chooses you. I really don't have a choice. From my perspective, my life's purpose is to tell the stories of Hawaii. And at this point in time, in this particular lifetime, that platform is to tell the stories of Hawaii from the Hawaii Visitors and Convention Bureau. This could last a year, it could last 10 years, it could last 20 years, I don't know. But my life's purpose will not change. And so whether or not I'm in a position like this, or I'm a stay-at-home father, which I really want to be when I grow up, or I'm a server in a restaurant, or I'm a mahi'ai kalo, the stories of Hawaii will drive everything that I do. And so I'll put a period there. Mahalo.
Was the question about why? Or
And what motivates you, as opposed to being in any other career, and you have multiple careers, but why are you involved in tourism?
yeah, so I don't chant, so I usually call Hina. But he took care of that. Okay, what motivates me? I think that, one, I do want to emphasize the thought of Kuleana. I don't know. I didn't know nothing about tourism. All I knew that it was having some significant impacts on our quality of life as a community. And funny story. One day, one of my staff bring me the newspaper, my chief of staff, Nick, and he tells me, "Look, they're putting out a bid for tourism contractor." And I was like, "We don't know nothing about tourism." And he told me, "You should think twice about that. The work that we're trying to do to uplift community and to provide economic development and stabilize our people, often, if you think through it, it's all connected to this economic driver, tourism." So after having some conversation with him and with others, I said, okay, let's do it. Let's go after this contract. This is a multi-million-dollar, multi-year contract, which has been traditionally held by the Hawaii Visitor and Convention Bureau, the organization that Aaron now leads.
I wasn't there yet.
To be honest, they had them for like 100 years, the contract. And nobody's ever taken them on in that way. And so I assembled the best Hawaiians that we possibly could to put our best effort forward. Even non-Hawaiians are part of it. And we went for it. We went for it, full steam. And we end up a finalist in the whole thing. And I got to tell you, even throughout this process, I'm going to answer the question, but even through the whole process, what was happening was we were starting to realize our own mana about like what we brought to the table and how we could actually contribute through even the application process. And so the question really became, why haven't we been more engaged in tourism? Why haven't we been going after these opportunities to shift tourism in a way that matters? I used to organize protests in Waikiki, right? We used to be part of the organizing crew. Shut down Waikiki. That was me in college. So, yeah, there's some people in the room over here was helping me. But when you think about it, that only goes so far. But when you're at the table helping to shape the decisions, now you're in play. So in many ways, we still protesting, guys. It's just now we do them on our computer and go to their board meetings to advocate for the needs of our people. So what motivates me is inspiring Native Hawaiians to see their true potential in all sectors.
Right.
And in this moment, it's tourism.
Cool. Daniel?
Well, I got started in tourism actually because I worked at that organization that both of them were talking about, the Hawaii Visitors Bureau at the time. I was just coming out of getting my master's in Japanese business, and of course Japanese business is all about tourism in Hawaii, right, at the beginning of the 90s. But when I got there, I realized it was already a Hawaiian organization. In the room there, we had Auntie Noi Mahoi. Uncle Likeke Pagiliwan. Manu Boyd had just left, he moved on. We had, at that time, Uncle George, Dr. Kanahele wrote his book, From Kānaka. He actually wrote a special tourism version and then established with Kenny Brown, the Native Hawaiian Hospitality Association. And from those people, and even my Kumus Kumu, Mikey Ayu Lake, at the Royal Hawaiian Shopping Center, established the cultural center that continues on to Antipua right now. So we have been at the table trying to make that change, and that's what continues to inspire me, that the people that invested their lives and all of the Hawaiians that actually work in the industry and make a livelihood out of it, we need to continue to support them while internally, as Kuhio said, being at the table to shift the thought process, the way decisions are made, so that it benefits all of us and we all can move and rise together.
Yeah, and I want to explore that because that's the historic moment. It's not just that Hawaiians are involved in working at these organizations. Now you're at the top. And what do the three of you and people that you're working with as Native Hawaiians bring to the leadership of this organization, organizations plural, that was different from the past when you had non-Native Hawaiians? Kuhio?
Well, I think, to Daniel's point, Hawaiians have always been fighting to be in the conversations at the table. And it's really the foundation that they've laid that allows us to make this move. I want to recognize them, their contributions. Even John DeFries, who former head of HTA, he opened this door. He helped change the trajectory so that we could apply. But what I think we bring to the table, we've been having this conference. This is before my time too. It's for 24 years, and never have we hosted discussions like this with our community, our Native Hawaiian community. And so what CNHA is bringing to the table is bringing the people's voice into the conversation so that whatever decisions and conversations that are being had at that table can include them. And that's something I think is very important because a handful of people's mana'o is, I feel, much stronger when it's backed by community. Right. So throughout our conventions, you have breakout sessions, you have different things all focused on tourism. And I think that's so awesome. And so that's what we're bringing to the table, is the elevation of our community voice in the conversations and decision making.
So it's not just leadership, it's listening. Leaders listening to the community and then acting upon that listening.
I think that's part of it, absolutely. I think, because CNHA has 1,400 members that are part of our network. Many of those are nonprofits, organizations who employ thousands and thousands. And so that ability to reach in and pull some of that ike and that mana'o into the conversations, I think is really important. And that's probably something that's needed in this moment as we try to shift the trajectory.
What about specifics? Okay, so you folks, you've been thinking about this before. Maybe you've had your criticisms of the other leaders that have preceded you in these positions. What's your vision? What's your vision for tourism over the next couple of years? Maybe the policies, the directions. How are those going to change, or what are your ideas? Have you formed those visions yet?
Can I go first? Part of the confusion that we have in our community with the way that the government has designed the authority and the authority has assigned major market areas is that I think partly by design there is challenge in the communication of what that looks like. And so for everyone in the room, the Hawaii Tourism Authority is attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. It is quasi or semi-autonomous depending on how you think about the autonomy of the authority. But it is attached legislatively to DBED. And what the authority did was divide the world up into what the authority calls major market areas. And so there is Hawaii Tourism Japan, Hawaii Tourism Oceania, Hawaii Tourism USA, etc. So I think there are 9 MMAs? Something like Kalamai. So HVCB currently is responsible for one of these major market areas. That is the United States. Because the United States is the largest market of tourism coming into Hawaii, okay? HVCB itself is a private, nonprofit membership organization, much like CNHA. And so part of the challenge in the communication about how these organizations interact is that we get confused over tourism that is HTA and tourism that is HVCB. So HVCB itself is 121, to Kuhio's point, 121 years old in 2024. The roadway to establish what was the Hawaii Tourism Committee at that time was sort of progenerated by Kalakaua, when Kalakaua partnered with Dillingham to dig the Alawai. The pathway toward what Kalakaua did with Dillingham was created by Kauikeauli, Kamehameha III, because when Kamehameha III, Kauikeauli, came to power and established himself as a constitutional monarchy, what he was saying in the doing of that work was to say that Hawaii already, back in the 1840s, was a world power. And so in the establishment of himself as a constitutional monarch, Kauikeauli was creating a pathway such that the entire world would know the power that is Hawaii. During Kamehameha III's time, after he established himself as a constitutional monarch, he established a Supreme Court. You know, it is crazy that we think that, in 1980, whatever it was, we had the first women's Supreme Court justice in the United States. Well, Kauikeauli had nahi and a lawyer right on the Supreme Court already in 1840. Oh, it's huge. Already with Kauikeauli, and I'll try to wrap this up quickly but so that you know where HVCB is going, but already Kauikeauli was saying to the world, you don't need to be Hawaiian, native-blooded, to be Hawaiian, a subject of the kingdom. All you had to do was come to Hawaii and pledge your allegiance to the kingdom. Boom, kanani, o oehe Hawaii. And so our superpower, in my opinion, is the fact that what we have found is a way to negotiate peace with each other on a daily basis and find a way to live together in as diverse a community as we are, and we call ourselves Hawaii. And that, for me, is the reason why so much more than us needing tourism, the world needs us, because that is our superpower. So HVCB then, going into this next iteration, we've existed without a strategy for 15 years. We're going into strategic planning. I am personally fascinated. I'm very, very curious about the role that AI, innovative technologies will play. When everybody is doom scrolling, I love playing on ChatGPT. I become the master prompter. I ask ChatGPT things like, if Kalakaua had not signed the Bayonet Constitution, what kind of nation would we be? Socially, economically, politically, military, and I start to play with ChatGPT in order to design for myself the kind of infiltration and penetration we have to do inside of the game that we play, so that we know how to maneuver, so that we don't have to be bullies at the stage. We just be steely, cold, calm, zen serial killers. And that really is the power of, and then we leverage the power that is tourism on the shoulders of kupuna like Antinoi, Uncle Mahi, Haunani Kahalewai, Nina Kelivam, and all these incredible Hawaiians who designed what the industry is, and assure that the industry is leveraged to our own ends. Kalamai, I'm watching the Kalamai. Mahalo, period.
I wanted to go, mahalo. I'll jump right from that then. So going back to what the question previously about what the leadership is all about being Native Hawaiian. So as Aaron mentioned, it's not just about being that we are Native Hawaiian, but we bring with us our Native Hawaiian values and our worldview. And we're infusing it into a very predominant industry here in Hawaii. And we're changing not only the precept of how this industry works, but if we can succeed, we will change Bishop Street. We will change how the banks think, how the other industries here process. You know, we look at Native Hawaiian worldview. We have to ensure that we, as leaders, respect and ensure that the community and the people of Hawaii are our ultimate goal and our objective, to ensure that they have strong financial wealth, that they have strong, sustainable living conditions. At the same time, we're also respect each other and the culture that created Hawaii. Native Hawaiian culture is indigenous culture. That means it's been developed because we live on an isolated island group. And that has kept us as Native Hawaiians for being here over our thousands of years. That is what needs to drive the future of the industry here in Hawaii, or Hawaii and our economy here. So we're taking all of our historic knowledge and our cultural knowledge and applying that. And we have succeeded. You know, in the visitor industry, to me, we have made great strides. We're one of the only industries and businesses that actually employ cultural experts in a day-to-day basis, not just to be a show and talk about and teaching visitors or tourists, but actually many of our cultural, what we call lamaku ho'okipa, are there working with their employees and their coworkers to instill that value and the values and the way we live as Native Hawaiians. We've also made changes and used tourism to add value to small businesses, and that's what CNHA and Kilohana is doing now, getting the stories and those community groups that want to be a part and utilize all of these visitors that are coming so they can help them in volunteerism, to help them sell their goods and wares that are out here. And these are things that we can then take into other industries. And then, sorry, so that's where I'm right now in terms of tying this all together for me.
And I wanted to ask Kohio that the tourists, so CNHA and Kilohana, now they're the destination management stewards. Are the tourists buying into the vision that you have, and has that changed?
Thanks for the question. First, I want to recognize Tyler Iokepa Gomes. He's actually the administrator of Kilohana, our tourism division. You've been hearing him throughout the day. So we signed the contract with HTA in the middle of August of last year. So it's only been 1 year. In order to huli this thing, it's going to take a little time. But what I will say is, I think even working in collaboration with HTA to find the right type of contract. So just everybody understands, so that you break it down. There's two big contractors that HTA employs to interact with the mainland market or the U.S. market. And that's HVCB, who does the marketing. CNHA is responsible for the stewardship, or essentially when a visitor hits our islands, we tell that story. We take over the curation for those visitors. Working together is a work in progress. Finding ways for it to be seamless is something that we're going to continue to lomi and massage. But that said, I've always advocated that, you know, you can market for days, but where's the destination that people come to? You know, we have to build and invest in a destination that's respected by our people, that's respected by our culture. And that's something that's going to take time to do. You know, when you drive through Waikiki, where's the Hawaii businesses in Waikiki? You see a lot of chain restaurants, you see a lot of large retailers, but where's the Hawaii-based business? Because we lose 1 in 4 Hawaiians leave our islands. That's just a fact. How do we get tourism to actually work for us economically so that we can benefit? How do we become the managers? How do we become the directors of the restaurants rather than the cooks and the cleaners? You know, we got to elevate ourselves, and tourism has to work for us so that economically we can afford to stay in Hawaii. So that to me is part of what I see our kuleana is as the steward, holding the stewardship contract, it's going to require time, but it's also going to be, it's also extremely fragile because if you turn it too quickly, you mess with the entire economics of the state. So it's a
Right.
balancing act. It's going to take a little more time.
Yeah, can I respond? I want to add on and then push back just a little bit. The add-on piece of it is that the way that Kuhio articulates the contract, destination stewardship and destination management, really is an outcrop of this one big contract. And the way that the state decided to rectify the challenge of awarding the contract was to assign a destination marketing contract for the US contract to HVCB. Again, predates me. And a destination stewardship contract to CNHA through the auspices of Kilohana, right? Now, destination stewardship is not just for a US-based tourist. Destination stewardship is across the board. So if HTA decides that the goal is to maintain a stewardship pillar, that pillar ultimately, in my opinion, should be standalone because tourists come from all over the world to Hawaii. Destination stewardship is not just for you guys from California will participate in these stewardship activities and you guys from Japan will do whatever you do, right? So let me just sort of comma and ellipsis the way that piece of the contract is. The other part of it too is, and I understand the sort of huliau in the way that we articulate, but the fact of the matter is that much of Waikiki is still owned by Hawaiians. So that area where Royal Hawaiian Center currently sits is owned by Kamehameha Schools. So everyone on Kalakaua of Royal Hawaiian Center is paying millions and millions of dollars in rent, but everyone inside Kalakaua, on the inside of the center, I think they are 75% locally owned and operated. Not necessarily Native Hawaiian owned, so let me acknowledge that, but certainly locally owned and operated. And if you patronize Royal Hawaiian Center, you are participating in the education of Native Hawaiian children. Across the street on the Mauka side, Kaluokau is owned by Queen Emma, International Marketplace, the Beachcomber, etc. So you purchase, I don't know what percentage of retail at International Marketplace is locally owned and operated. But if you patronize Kaluokau, you're participating in Native Hawaiian health. Up the road at Hamo Hamo is Queen Lili'uokalani. And so the image of us and them is useful when we need something to do something. But it's complex. I think the thing that I want to say, that our industry in terms of tourism is complex because we have been complicit and complacent in the design and activities of the industry since the inception of the industry. And so it's so easy for us, and this is not a criticism of Kuhio, this is really all of us together. We really should be us and us and us and us. Right? So, but the criticism of us is that the narrative, when the narrative becomes us and them, we belie all the complexities of the Hawaiians who have participated in the imaging of Hawaii since the inception of the industry in Hawaii. And we have to take responsibility for that activity first, before we can get through all the sort of trials and tribulations in order for us to get to the other side of this huliau. I agree that we do need to huliau, because 10 million in 1 year is just exorbitant. It's just irresponsible. And so, I mean, thank you for that. But the other part of it too is back to us being Native Hawaiian. See, I appreciate Allison Schaefer's for writing the article, and I appreciate very much the headline. But once the headline becomes the narrative, we are in danger zone. Again, my personal opinion, because the challenge that we have as Hawaiians is because we see we come from a place of bottom of the barrel. If we shoot one person to the top, boom, Hawaiian has gotten it. I don't see us that way at all. I see us living in tremendous abundance wherever we are. And so the problem with the headline is, if the headline becomes the narrative, I've iconicized Aaron and Daniel and Tyler and Kukio, and I don't want to be an icon. I just want to do the work, because we will fail. We will fail over and over and over and over again. And every time we fail, one group of Hawaiians can say, see, told you, Hawaiian, he don't know. And this is why he don't know, because he didn't do this and do this and do this and do this. Tomorrow, my Portuguese grandpa, you see, I told you, take that job. And so the challenge with the narrative becomes really dangerous for us as Hawaiians trying to do this kind of work in this kind of industry at this particular time, because the expectation gets so high and mighty, we will disappoint you over and over and over again. And I think that what I would like for us to do is really just, like, when we say he mea kākou no ia, all the time, every day, in and out, every time you wake up in the morning, that it is important for us to continue to support, not just place. Mahalo.
Understanding that the Ali'i Trusts own much of the land on which hotels are built. We did a story earlier this year trying to find out how many Hawaiian-owned hotels there are, and the number is very tiny, very tiny. So this hotel is not Hawaiian-owned. This hotel is not even owned by a Hawaii company. And so many of the hotels, the crown jewels, so to speak, of the tourism industry are owned offshore, are owned from companies outside of Hawaii. So that means your vision, in order for you to succeed, and it's a long-term goal, you have to convince these other companies that are not even based in Hawaii that this is a good vision for them also. Is that a challenge? Is that something you're working on?
I think Aaron's hitting on an important point here, because yes, Hawaiians don't own many hotels, but I think what I think we bring as leaders is the value system that represents Hawaii, which is missing in many ways in the industry. It exists, but it could be strengthened, and I think the value system that we collectively as Native Hawaiians, because it's generational, like it's within you. You can't deny that kuleana that you have. If that can be emulated, regardless of who owns the hotel or runs the hotel, then you start to change the fabric, and then hopefully one day we'll actually own the hotels.
Yeah.
But because I believe that that even if we were to be handed hotels, are we ready to take on that kuleana in this moment? But what we can do is change the fabric of the industry, and I think alongside our community, who's been much more involved in tourism and its impacts, we can make that shift. I want to clarify something that the contract that we have with Hawaii Tourism Authority is very specific, and Aaron started to mention it. It was really just they needed to settle the situation, and so it ended up being what it is. It doesn't completely make sense in some ways, but it's something that has to make sense at some point. What I mean is, CNHA has been launching various initiatives in Waikiki, from bringing back the Kodak Hula show, or starting a show at the Hyatt, or even most recently working with the city and county to rebrand Kuhio Beach, or so that they have brand guidelines. Like, all of these things are not part of the contract we have with HTA, but it's kuleana that we see that needs to happen as part of this pivot. And I think that's, as a Hawaiian organization with the influence that we have, we can support HTA, we can support the industry in that way. So this is stuff that wouldn't exist if we weren't at the table.
Right.
So everything is still culminating, it's still figuring itself out. But to summarize this, I think just having values, perspective, culture, ike in the room, very important.
I think from understanding that as a state agency, right, we are responsible for balancing both parts. There's economic development that we need to drive state revenue in order to keep the lights on, in order to provide the money and funding for the repairs on Maui. But at the same time, we're also responsible for holistically managing the other parts. If there's impacts, but we want to move towards creating a visitor experience and a visitor industry that is regenerative when we talk about that, meaning it's actually contributing more positive instead of taking away. And that's why we've switched. Recently, we started a new campaign, The People, the Place, the Hawaiian Islands. But it's more than just a campaign. It's a belief and an understanding that in order for all of us to be here and for the visitor industry to survive, they must first recognize the people. The stories and the experiences that are going to be created in the future come from the people. It doesn't come from some marketing campaign and some overseas type of desire to do this wonderful sports or very wow, exciting type of activity, but actually what the community wants to tell, what they want to do and host, right? There's the place we have to respect, ensure that things are sustainable and we address all of our natural resource concerns and ensure that we don't further impact where we are, Being people on the land, we are actually part and we are stewards of that land. And of course, finally, it's the Hawaiian Islands, meaning this is where we get into the part that Kilohana and CNHA are making great strides in, and that is changing what the Hawaiian Islands appears and looks like to people abroad, overseas. Right now, they think of it as a fun, sun, beach, resort place. But we're changing the brand. They are helping us to support and develop new tourism products, tours, agricultural programs, funding some of this development of clothing and manufacturing here in Hawaii. And we'll be known as a cultural place, of a place that has its own very strong and long-lasting history. And people will come here to learn, to take educational tours instead, to take understanding more about how to be sustainable and environmental practices, and about learning about what Aaron had mentioned about what aloha truly means in terms of living a balanced life here. And they can come and practice here and do that and take it back and improve their own lifestyle and where they come from. And hopefully that impacts the world. And that's what we're doing, the people, the place, and the Hawaiian Islands.
Owning a hotel is one part of the network. And you can certainly own a building if you want to own the building. And that provides you an infrastructure that is one part of the network. But something has to go in the building. People have to work in the building. Art has to go on the walls. And so when Kuhio is talking about the fabric, for me, content is always king. And the content is us. And so I use Jack and Shaw Thompson as an example for this. Jack and Shaw Thompson were poor kids from Kalihi. He was a beautiful fire knife dancer, and she's Hawaiian Filipino hula dancer, studied with a formidable hula. Before the days of kumuhula, she was in a hula studio, and they created a business that is almost, I can't even do the math anyway, but what Jack and Shaw Thompson have done in the birthing of what has now become Tihati Productions is show what is possible with a native Hawaiian Pacific Islander team who have now hundreds of employees, brownies, across the state. They've performed all over the world, and their work is bar none. It's not all hula, but chances are the people that come to see their show aren't going to go to Fiji. And they brought Fijians in to teach the Fijian dancing. And so there is a level of authenticity in that engagement that provides for direct contact. And so in the weaving of the fabric, what I'm more interested in than owning the hotel is all the content that has to go into the hotel, because we are that content. And if we have a voice in what that content is and how it is presented and how it is engaged with and what the rules are for that engagement, what you can and cannot do with that engagement, we have all the agency in the world to decide what that is. In my experience in the industry and in this role, noting that I've only been in this role this month, is that almost everyone, sort of powers that be in the industry, has wanted to do or is wanting to learn. Almost every hotel property, engages with cultural practitioners as cultural directors, as directors of cultural affairs, et cetera, et cetera. So there's already this network of engagement that is happening throughout. Kilohana has forefronted and sort of catapulted that effort. And so the power of the work with us doing all of this together in front of the industry is an important piece of how these networks of engagement work together. I'm looking at this red thing over here.
Yeah, we have this counter. We're not the governor either, and
It's
so
okay. I just texted them to add 5 minutes.
So we're gonna. I'm gonna be.
You see, that's power.
Yeah. We have one more. Okay, so we've been given dispensation. One more question, and I'm going to ask it just to Kokio because I asked him about this earlier. You saw the John Oliver TV show about tourism on Maui. So people on the mainland, I guess, English-speaking people, got the message that you're not welcome. Tourists are not welcome on Maui. What is the message, Kokio, that you want potential tourists to Maui to hear?
I think we need to tell people what they can do rather than what they can't do. You know, like there are places that they can go, which provide employment opportunities, economic opportunities for our community. And so rather than the negative things about don't go here, don't go there, let's tell them what they can do. Let's curate those areas and those spaces. So that, I mean, I think it's good and bad that, you know, that what came out there. It's good because I think it wakes everybody up to think more critically about, you know, how we do things. I think on the other side, I think it provides so much opportunity too for us to do it correctly, curate the right stories and do it the right way. So anyway, that's my thoughts. Is I think we just need to be proactive in sending people to the right places and allowing Maui in particular to heal.
Thank you. I hope all three of you succeed in your vision. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to us. Mahalo.
You know, before we leave the stage, 'cause we still get 3 minutes, we added some time. I just thought maybe we could close out with everyone just with closing mana'o. I mean, this is obviously going to take some time to strengthen the work that needs to get done here. And so maybe just closing mana'o from each of us. Is that okay? Okay.
Mahalo Kuhio. Mahalo, Steve, for this. And mahalo again to the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement for this platform and for including us today. You know, I want to get out of the way as quickly as possible. And so HVCB has some work to do in terms of our own internal strategic planning, what that means moving forward as a private nonprofit membership organization, what that means moving forward in our partnership with HTA firstly, and then engagement with what stewardship looks like with Kilohana and CNHA in the long term. I want to play the long game, but I want to get to a strategic plan as quickly as possible so that I can get out of the way and let the awesome people doing the work do the work. I'm excited I'm excited because I truly believe that the world needs Hawaii more than we need them. That we have a superpower in the people that we are and how the people that we are bring our energy into the world. And so mahalo nui for this. Mahalo ya oko pakahi ke a koko ano kakou aloha.
Mahalo. And for myself and the Hawaii Tourism Authority, we make a promise to increase what we're doing in terms of creating more empowerment of communities in this decision-making process, ensure it's open and that there are many avenues to provide input, to be a part of the planning as well as development process, and actually in the end, benefiting from the tourism industry, using the tourism industry as a change agent to utilize the people that are coming here to Hawaii, that they learn about us, but at the same time, we learn about them in order to expand our own horizons and worldview. And we make that promise, though it will take money, and I ask for your support in convincing others, such as the state and other stakeholders, about what it really takes and the work that we need to do in destination stewardship as well as marketing so that we can all benefit as a community. Mahalo.
Just feeding off of what Aaron and Daniel both said, you know, I see Hawaii as a classroom where millions of people come here and we have an opportunity to teach them about the aloha spirit that exists in Hawaii. Because Auntie Pilahi once said, we have the key to world peace, and that key is aloha. And so I honestly think that if we can educate people about that aloha spirit as one value, and that emulate around the world, Hawaii becomes so important to the world structure. So I think tourism is, rather than looking at only the negative things about tourism, or we look at the opportunities that exist within it as well. I absolutely look forward to the work ahead, to working collaboratively with Aaron, Hawaii Tourism Authority. You know, and there's a lot more leaders out there that have been doing this work that we just all need to get together and continue doing it. But I think at the end of the day, what I look forward to the most is bringing community perspective into these conversations. So we're going to continue to keep those conversations going, whether it's at convention or other forums that CNHA provides. But I want to thank you guys for plugging in, for being a part of it. Thank you for being here and helping us fulfill our kuleana now in tourism. Mahalo.